Have you ever wondered why some veteran police officers never camp? Why certain officers refuse calls in remote areas after dark? Why some reports simply disappear from the precinct's files? My name is Daniel Carver, 23 years wearing this badge. And today, I'm going to tell you about 3 calls that made me question everything I learned at the academy. 3 nights that proved that not all danger wears a human face. It was the fall of 2019. My partner, Jake Miller, good kid, only 2 years on the force, and I were working the night shift covering rural areas of northern Minnesota. Jake still had that twinkle in his eye, that certainty that every problem had a logical solution. I used to have that too, before those 3 calls. Story 1, Echoes in the Dead Forest, 10:47 p.m. The call came from the switchboard. Unit 7-4, we have a call on Blackwood Trail. Camper reporting suspicious presence. Possible intruder in the camp. Victim appears agitated. Jake looked at me with that expression that said, "Here we go again. Another lover's quarrel or someone scared by a raccoon." At that time of night, most calls from the campground were false alarms. But something in the dispatcher's voice bothered me. There was a pause, as if she had heard something in the background of the connection that made her hesitate. The drive to Blackwood took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of dense pine trees on both sides, no streetlights, just our headlights cutting through the darkness. Jake tried to make conversation, something about the weekend football game, but I was distracted. Why would anyone camp alone in Blackwood in November? That place had a reputation, nothing official, just rumors, campers who heard things, equipment that disappeared without explanation. A family of hikers who ran away in the middle of the night 3 years ago, leaving everything behind. When we finally reached the start of the trail, we found an empty Honda Civic. The driver's door was slightly open, the keys still in the ignition. The engine was cold. The car had been there for hours. Jake illuminated the interior with his flashlight. No signs of a struggle. No blood. Yes, that didn't reassure me at all. We grabbed our flashlights and followed the trail. The forest was wrong. I can't explain it any better than that. The silence was profound. Not a single cricket chirping, not a single wind, as if the entire forest were holding its breath. Central. Unit 7-4 entering the Blackwood Trail. We're going to check the camp. Keep the channel open. The response came back filled with static, more so than usual. We walked for 20 minutes. Jake started to get nervous. I could tell by the way he held the flashlight, sweeping the trees with jerky movements. "Carver, can you feel it?" Feeling what? As if something were watching us. I felt it. But a veteran doesn't admit that to a rookie, not when you need him to keep his cool. Then we listened. A voice, male, distant. "Help, please." Jake froze. "Is anyone hurt?" He started running toward the voice before I could stop him. Shit. I followed behind him, my flashlight swaying violently as we ran down the trail. The voice continued, always ahead, always at the same distance. "Help, please. I'm hurt." Jake was the first to stop. He was panting, his hands on his knees. "Carver, we've been running for 5 minutes. Why is the voice still at the same volume?" He was right. If we were getting closer, the sound should get louder. But it didn't. It was as if the source of the sound was moving. That's when we saw the camp, a blue tent, a campfire extinguished, only ashes, and footprints, hundreds of them. Perfect circles around the tent, as if someone had walked around it dozens of times. But the footprints weren't normal. They were too deep, and they had 6 fingers. "What the hell is that?" Jake whispered. I approached the tent. "Police! Is anyone there?" Silence. I unzipped it. Empty. But the sleeping bag was still warm, and there was something scribbled on the inside wall of the tent with what looked like charcoal from the campfire. "He knows my name." "How does he know my name?" The voice returned, but this time it was behind us. "Help, Daniel, please." My blood froze. That thing just said my name. Jake looked at me with wide eyes of pure terror. We drew our weapons. scanning the forest with our flashlights. Nothing, just trees and darkness. The voice came again, closer, much closer. "Daniel, Jake, please, come help me. Identify yourself. Show your hands," I screamed, but my voice came out trembling. The radio on my belt exploded in violent static, and through the noise, we heard something that shouldn't be possible. Our own conversation. From the car, 40 minutes ago. Jake's voice saying, "Here we go again." My response about the football game. Word for word. Jake dropped the radio. "Carver, we need to get out of here now." I didn't argue. We ran back along the trail, our flashlights illuminating the way. But the trail was different. The trees weren't in the same places. Or were they? I couldn't be sure. The voice followed us, always behind us, always calling our names with that awful, pleading tone. "Daniel, Jake, don't leave me here. Please." It took us twice as long to get back. When we finally saw the police car, I almost cried with relief. We got in and I floored the accelerator, the tires skidding on the dirt. Jake was the first to see it. In the rear-view mirror, a figure standing on the path, motionless. It wasn't human. The silhouette was wrong. Limbs too long, head tilted at an impossible angle. And she was smiling. I was able to see the red brake light, a mouth full of teeth. Many teeth, more than any mouth should have. We drove in complete silence to the police station. When we tried to file the report, the sergeant just looked at us with an expression I had never seen on him before. Fear. He opened a locked drawer and took out an old, yellowed folder. "You are the 7th team to report this in Blackwood since 1983. "Why the hell do we still send units there?" Jake asked, his voice breaking. The sergeant closed the folder. "Because if we don't go, these things come out of the forest, and they come to the city." We never found the owner of that Honda Civic. Officially, it's listed as missing. But I know the truth. He's still there, somewhere in that forest, responding when that voice calls your name. Story 2. The Others. Camp. 2 weeks later, 11:15 p.m. Jake was still different since Blackwood. Quieter. He checked the backseat of the patrol car 3 times before getting in. I didn't blame him. I did the same thing. The call came as we were finishing a coffee break. Unit 7-4. We have a 10 to 53 at Pine Lake Campground. A witness reports erratic behavior from another camper. Possible substance use. The witness is very scared. Jake looked at me. Pine Lake is in an open area. No dense forests. Everything will be fine. He was trying to convince himself more than he was trying to convince me. Pine Lake was popular. Good facilities. Lots of families. Not the kind of place where strange things happened. I relaxed a bit. Error. We arrived 20 minutes later. The campsite was almost empty, out of season, with only 3 tents pitched near the lakeshore. A woman in her 30s was waiting for us in the parking lot, hugging herself despite her thick coat. "Officers, thank God. My name is Sarah Chen. I don't know if I'm going crazy or if something is very wrong." Jake grabbed his notepad. "Calm down, ma'am. Tell us what happened." Sarah pointed to the lake. "I came camping with my boyfriend, Marcus. We do this every year. But this time, he's acting strange. Very strange." "What kind of stranger?" I asked. "He keeps disappearing. Suddenly, in the middle of a conversation, he just stops talking, looks at the lake, and walks over there, without saying anything, without explanation. And when he comes back, he acts like nothing happened." Jake and I exchanged glances. Drugs, probably, or some kind of mental breakdown. "How many times has this happened?" Sarah hesitated. 7 times, in the last 3 hours. And there's more. I followed him once. He went to the edge of the lake and just stared at the water. For 10 minutes, without moving, not even blinking. "Was he alone?" I asked. Sarah's face turned pale. "No, there was someone else there. A man I'd never seen before. They weren't talking. They were just standing side by side, just looking at the water." "Where is Marcus now?" in our tent. But officers, that last time he came back, when I looked into his eyes, Sarah began to tremble. It wasn't him. I don't know how to explain it. It was his face, his voice, but the person behind those eyes. It wasn't my boyfriend. Jake reached for his holster. Instinct. Let's talk to him. Stay here. We walked to the camping area. 3 tents. Sarah and Marcus's was green in the middle, but something was wrong with the other 2. The tents on either side were old, faded fabric, tiers patched with tape, covered in slime in the lake, as if they had been there for months, years, perhaps. Central 7-4. Do you have a record of how long those other tents have been set up here? Static. So, negative. 7-4. According to park records, only Sarah Chen is registered at the camp this week. Jake swallowed hard. Carver. I know. Stay alert. We approached the green tent. Marcus. Police. We need to ask you some questions. Movement inside the tent. Zipper opening. A man emerged, early 30s, unshaven, normal camping clothes, but his eyes, Jesus Christ. Sarah was right. There was something deeply wrong with those eyes. They were technically human. Right color, right shape, but the way he looked at us, it was like being examined by a predator, calculating, cold. Can I help you, officers? Her voice was perfectly normal, polite even. We received a call about your behavior. Sir, your girlfriend is worried. Marcus, or whatever was using Marcus's body, tilted his head. Sarah is fine, just tired. The mountain air sometimes makes people disoriented. The way he said disoriented gave me goosebumps. Sir, would you be willing to take a voluntary sobriety test? Of course. He took a step forward. That's when I saw her feet, wet, completely soaked, dripping. But it hadn't rained, and he was supposedly inside the tent. Jake saw it too. His hand went to the gun. Marcus smiled, that same artificial smile that Cameron should have given in that forest a while back. Only the mouth moved. The rest of the face remained still. There is something wrong, officers. Before we could answer, we heard zippers opening. The other 2 stalls. 2 figures emerged. Men, also dressed in camping gear, also completely soaked, water dripping from them and forming puddles. They walked over to Marcus's side. All 3 of them stared at us with those dead eyes. And then, in unison, they spoke. You should leave now, officers. This is not a safe place after dark. Jake pulled out his gun. Don't move. Hands where I can see them. The 3 men didn't move. They just kept looking. And then, slowly, they all turned their heads in the same direction, to the lake. The water was moving. Not normal waves. Something large was moving beneath the surface. Concentric circles spreading out, getting bigger, closer together. Jake, get back in the car, now. We ran. The 3 men didn't try to stop us. They just stood there, watching while we ran back to where Sarah was waiting. Madam, get in your car and get out of here, Jake screamed. Sarah didn't need to hear it twice. She ran to her SUV and sped off, the tires screeching on the asphalt. We looked back before getting into the vehicle. The 3 men were on the shore of the lake. Their backs were to us. They were looking at the water, and something was emerging. Something big. Something that definitely shouldn't exist in a freshwater lake in Minnesota. We got into the car and sped away. In the rearview mirror, I saw the 3 men entering the water, walking calmly, until they disappeared completely beneath the surface. What the hell was that? Jake yelled, punching the panel. I had no answer. We called the county sheriff's office. They sent a search team the next day. They found the 3 tents empty, completely dry inside, although they were covered in lake mud on the outside. They didn't find Marcus. They didn't find the other 2 men, but they found something that wasn't in the official report. Footprints leading out of the lake. Dozens of them, all heading towards the main road. The Pine Lake campground was closed for maintenance. A week later, it's still closed. 3 years later, Marcus Chen is still listed as missing. But I know where he is, at the bottom of that lake, with all the others who made the mistake of camping there. Story 3. What follows in the darkness. 1 month later, 10:33 p.m., Jake requested a transfer after the lake incident. I didn't blame him. He has a wife and a young child. No police officer's salary is worth that. My new partner was Rodriguez, an ex-military man, 5 years in the force, a good cop. Didn't ask many questions. The call came on a Saturday night. Unit 7-4, we have a 1091 in Whispering Pines. The woman reports being stalked by an unknown individual. She is locked in a rented cabin. Suspect may be attempting to break into the property. Rodriguez picked up the map. Whispering Pines. That's 40 minutes from here. Speed up. Possible intrusion attempt in progress. We turned on the sirens and floored it. Whispering Pines was a popular vacation cabin area. Secluded places in the forest that people rented to escape the city. Beautiful during the day. But at night, the darkness there was absolute. When we arrived, we found a young woman in her early 20s on the front porch, holding a baseball bat. She was pale, her eyes red from crying. Officers, thank God. She almost collapsed with relief. Rodriguez helped her sit down. Take a deep breath, miss. You're safe now. What's your name? Casey Griffin. Okay, Casey, tell us what happened. She trembled, pulling at her coat even tighter. I came camping. I wanted to try it for the first time, and this seemed like a safe place near the cabin I rented. But when I got to the campsite, there was a man there. What kind of man? Tall, about my age. He showed up right after I set up my tent, and he just watched me. He didn't set up a real camp, just an empty tent, no food, no sleeping bag, nothing. And he was smiling the whole time, that awful smile. Rodriguez wrote everything down. And then I got scared and decided to come back here. But when I was packing my things, I saw that he had started following me along the trail. I ran back and locked all the doors. And then her voice broke. He banged on the door, but it wasn't a normal bang. It was like he was trying to break it down, and he tried to open the windows. I called you and he ran away. How long has it been since he left? 20 minutes, maybe less. I looked at Rodriguez. I'll check the perimeter. You keep it. Rodriguez nodded, and I went out, flashlight in hand, scouring the forest around the cabin. The trail was right there, the entrance 50 meters from the cabin. I walked over there, scanning the area with the light. That's when I saw it. Footprints. Barefoot. But these weren't normal human footprints. The toes were very long, very thin, and there was a claw at the end of each one. Fucking shit. I followed the footprints into the trail. They led to the campsite Casey had described. The tent was still there, a pathetic, transparent structure with nothing inside. But there was something scribbled on the ground around her. Symbols, dozens of them, made with branches and stones. They weren't random. They were a pattern, a perfect circle around where Casey had pitched her tent. She had camped inside a trap. My radio crackled. Rodriguez, tense voice. Carver, you need to come back now. I ran back along the trail. When I reached the cabin, Rodriguez was on the porch with Casey behind him, gun drawn, pointed toward the forest. What happened? He's back. He's there. Rodriguez pointed with the flashlight. At the edge of the light, where the forest began, there was a figure, tall, very tall, at least 2.5 meters, and he was wrong. His arms were too long. His legs were bent at strange angles. I wasn't wearing any clothes, because it had no skin. It was raw flesh, muscles exposed, glistening moist in the flashlight. And the face, God, the face, he was human, perfectly human. A handsome, smiling male face. But it was only a skin mask stretched over a head that was definitely not human. Identify yourself. Hands on your head, I screamed, but my voice came out trembling. The thing tilted its head. The face mask continued to smile, but I could see the edges coming loose, revealing something underneath, something with too many eyes. She took a step forward, then another. Rodriguez opened fire. 3 shots, center of mass. They all got it right. The thing didn't fall. Nor did it falter. He just kept walking, faster now. Inside, inside, inside. We pushed Casey into the cabin and slammed the door shut. Rodriguez locked everything he could. Doors, windows. He even pushed the sofa against the entrance. Whatever it was, he began pacing around the cabin, heavy footsteps on the wooden patio, scratches on the windows. Casey was sobbing. "What is that? What is that?" We had no answer. The radio was dead, just static. Cell phones had no signal. We were alone. For 3 hours, that thing circled the cabin, trying every window, every door. The face mask pressed against the glass, that awful smile never changing. It was at 3:42 a.m. that she finally stopped. The footsteps ceased, total silence. We waited another 30 minutes before Rodriguez dared to look out the window. It disappeared. When dawn broke, we called for reinforcements. A search team searched for 3 days. They found nothing, no trace, no footprints. The tent at the campsite had completely disappeared. Casey Griffin left the state a week later and never returned to Minnesota. The case was filed as thwarted break-in, suspect unidentified. But I know what that thing was, and I know it's still out there, waiting, setting new traps. Rodriguez also requested a transfer. He's working in Portland now. He doesn't camp, he doesn't fish, he avoids forests completely. Jake is in a police station in Denver. He called me once, 6 months ago. He was drunk. He said he still hears that voice sometimes, calling his name when he's alone. I should have retired, but I can't, because now I know the truth. I know these things are real, and someone needs to be there when the calls come. Someone who knows that not all emergencies have rational explanations. Not all dangers wear prison uniforms or drive stolen trucks. There are things in the forests of Minnesota, and probably everywhere, that we shouldn't find. I still work the night shift. I still answer calls in remote areas. But now I know what to look for. The signs, the patterns, the traps. And every time I get a call from a camp after dark, I say a prayer, because I know there's a 50% chance that when we get there, we won't find a human criminal. We're going to find something much worse, something that is waiting for, something that knows our names. If you've made it this far and these stories have left you unsettled, well, this is just the beginning. I compiled over 20 years of unofficial reports, cases that never made it into public records, calls that were lost in the systems, testimonies that were quietly filed away. In my ebook, Midnight Calls, Unsolved Cases of a Minnesota Police Officer, you will find 12 complete and detailed cases with evidence, transcripts of 911 calls, and photographs that have never been released. Maps of the dead zones, areas in Minnesota where emergency calls consistently result in disappearances, unofficial protocols that we pass on to each other, warning signs that academia never teaches, audio transcripts of a dispatch. One of the most disturbing calls I've received. The ebook is available in the description of this video. And if you're a camper, hiker, or simply enjoy spending time in nature, you need to read this, because knowledge can be the difference between returning home and becoming just another missing person in a forgotten file. Stay safe out there, and never answer when something in the forest calls your name, even if it's the voice of someone you know.